So over 10 years ago, when we set up the Maturity Institute, we asked a whole group of us, various expertise from academics to consultants to business people. We spent quite a few months asking a very simple question, which was, how do people who work with or inside an organization, what affects the way they create value? What are all the things that influence and affect their actions, their behaviors, their decisions, and how does that drive value and risk within an organizational context? And so we spent a lot of time looking at the evidence, coming up with our own thinking, using our own experience, just to consider all the ways in which people create value. And the 10 pillars were what we designed and developed over about 3, 4, 5 months. And you'll see those in front of you. Just to say a couple of things about them, they work as a whole system. So each of these pillars captures specific areas through which people's actions, behaviors, and decisions are influenced and affected to drive value. They're all independent, but they're all interdependent as well. And that reflects the fact that maturity, it's about understanding how an organization's whole human system drives value and risk. The other thing to say is that these 10 pillars are the sort of foundational core of how we measure organizational maturity today. So using these 10 pillars, they are the sort of core foundational areas for developing the diagnostic questions, the diagnostic factors through which we measure organizational maturity today. The other thing to understand about this whole human system called the 10 pillars is that they've been academically tested. So there was a very long-term research project, or we've had a very long-term research project with the University of Lisbon, and we published a paper earlier last year which shows that these 10 pillars matter. They matter to an organization's performance. They also matter very much to the organization's human capital strategy and the effectiveness of how it's managing its own people. And so maturity is really, really important for leadership to understand that the more mature you are, the more likely it is that your people strategies, your human capital practices and initiatives are going to have an impact on the value, your own value as an organization, and the management of human risk as well. So that's a starting point. We're obviously going to go into some of these pillars in quite a lot of depth, but maybe it's worth just going through them as a whole, just to give people a sense of what these pillars are. So the screen in front of you shows pillar number 1, which we call the value motive. And that really is essentially capturing how an organization defines and manages value. Is it financial return, or does it integrate issues of quality, innovation, and external impact? Pillar 2 is about learning. It says, how do you learn? And here we're looking at whether everyone's voice matters, but really importantly is knowledge systematically acquired from all human relationships, all stakeholders, and from every work task. So that's really how we define and understand learning in a mature context. Pillar 3 is human value ethos, or human ethos. Is an organization there to really develop and realize human potential, or does it manage people as a cost? And is it more exploitative or extractive in terms of how it manages all its human capital? So as it says there, are people value contributors, or are they a cost of doing business? Are they allowed to flourish, or essentially are they overworked and pushed to perform? Pillar 4 is whole system. So is our firm or organization seamlessly knit together as a whole human system, or is it fragmented culturally and operationally? We tend to think about that we tend to understand that is our firm one of silos, or is it really integrated systems across boundaries and territories and functions, etc.? Pillar 5 is about improvement, continuous improvement. So who innovates? So here in a maturity context, we want to know whether all roles require idea generated. Are you asked as an individual, whether you're the cleaner or whether you're the CEO, do you bring improvement to the organization, or are you there just to do a job? Equally, is there a system in place which encourages, captures, and measures that innovation over time? Pillar 6 is human risk. So are people a peril? So how do you assess, measure, and mitigate all facets and factors of human and culture risk? We'll explore a little bit later how human risk is still relatively narrowly framed. And so many organizations are missing key material aspects and factors of human risk. Pillar 7, human capital strategy. So are people and business strategies co-created and truly integrated? What we find with many organizations is their people strategy follows business strategy or tries to align with business strategy. And in most organizations where that arises, organizations are playing catch up. That means that we often don't factor into particular risk issues that may arise when we develop business strategy or strategic goals, and we end up not maximizing the value opportunities which may be available or are available when we really understand and integrate human capital strategy. Pillar 8 is communication. So is communication open, transparent, and authentic? Are all messages properly heard? And have we got a system of feedback loops to ensure that key information is properly shared, disseminated, and understood? 9, performance and reward. Is performance or value managed? So are we managing people based on a narrow frame of something like productivity or revenue generation or output or hitting targets? Or are we managing performance in a much wider context or much more an environment where we understand people's ability to contribute to value? Similarly, because performance and reward are often integrated or intertwined, how do they work together? Do they actually complement and support one another, or do they create tension and conflict? Do our reward systems actually undermine what we're trying to achieve in terms of realizing human potential? And pillar 10 here, we talk about trust, engagement, and cooperation. So 3 really important but interrelated components. So do we trust our leaders, managers, our organization? Do we feel trusted as an individual such that we feel that we've got autonomy and are empowered to do our job as best we can? Do we have sufficient trust? Do we foster sufficient engagement, which really drives collaboration, cooperation, and all these things really work together to create really powerful performance and value from all the people which touch our organization. So in that sense, you can start to get a feel of how these pillars work as a whole and how they kind of interrelate and feed into each other. But as I said right at the start, these are really core foundational elements, and they sit behind how we measure and manage organizational maturity today.